G'day, I'm Matt from Photo Sentinel Australia.
And I'm Ross from Photo Sentinel USA.
And this is 10 mistakes photographers make when shooting long-term time-lapse.
And how to avoid them.
Mistake number 1 is assuming long-term time-lapse is the same as short-term time-lapse. There are a lot of crossovers, but there are also some really fundamental differences in pre-production, production, post-production, and even the business side of giving long-term time-lapse to your clients. Now, that's not to say that you have to be an absolute expert in everything, but it is worth investing the time learning and educating yourself around long-term time-lapse and the unique skills that are required there. So, how to avoid this mistake is spend the time educating yourself.
Number 2 is failing to plan. Now, with any creative project, planning is the key to the success of the project. And long-term time-lapse is no different because you can never go back and see the beginning of a construction project a second time. So you only get one chance for the success. So there are a lot of different factors that you need to be considering with long-term time-lapse for planning. Which equipment are you going to use, the camera and lens setup for that, what's going to be the site access available to you, and a plethora of other things to consider. Now, to avoid the mistake, we've created the project planner, which will help you think through all the different aspects of your project to plan properly. Now, to help you flesh that out even further, you can talk with one of our experts as well.
Mistake number 3, undershooting. With long-term time-lapse, you're going to end up with a whole lot of photos that you actually can't use in your final video. This is because there's going to be days where it rains, perhaps days on end, days where all the activity is taking place inside the building while you're taking photos of the outside of the building. That's not changing. You never know, workers may go on strike, you may have other problems that mean you're not getting a change in the scene that you're photographing. And then, of course, you're going to get different light early in the morning, late in the afternoon. You may get the sun shining in at different times of the year. You're going to end up with a whole lot of photos you can't use. So what you don't want to do with long-term time-lapse is what you sometimes do with short-term time-lapse, which is you start with how long you want your final clip or video to be, and you work your way backwards, working out how many photos you need. But because you're going to be cutting out so many photos in the final editing process of long-term time-lapse, you actually want to overshoot. You want to shoot a lot more photos than you need. Now, the need to shoot photos has to also be balanced with your capacity to deal with lots of photos. So in particular, your data budget for your cellular plan. Obviously, you can't upload terabytes and terabytes of data every month, so you need to find the balance between how many photos can you shoot without going over your budget for uploading. And then, of course, you also want to hold in balance your post-processing power, how much storage you're going to need. What you're looking for in the end is a series of photos where change happens between each shot and you've got similar lighting and similar colors. And so to avoid this mistake and make sure you get enough photos for your final sequence, overshoot, but within the parameters of how much you can upload according to your data restrictions. We've found that roughly 10 to 30 minutes of photo ends up being about right.
And number 4 is failing to test your equipment. I cannot stress enough the importance of testing your equipment properly, because with long-term time-lapse equipment, there is a lot that is going on. You've got the camera, you've got the cellular network, and you've got the intervalometer going on. So every aspect of this needs to be thoroughly thought through, thoroughly tested before you go on site. You do not want to have to be stuck up a pole 15 feet in the air wondering, what am I doing with this piece of equipment? You want to have confidence in this piece of equipment that you've purchased in order to be able to successfully complete this project. Now, you can have that success by spending at least, we recommend, 24 to 48 hours for every single project. And for your first project especially, I even recommend up to a week, as much time as you possibly can to give yourself the confidence for the success of the project.
Mistake number 5 is failing to budget for maintenance visits. Now, in an ideal world, you'd put the equipment out there, nothing would ever go wrong, but of course, Murphy's Law, we know things will go wrong. Whether it's a spider weaving a web in front of the glass, or lightning striking, or working with technology, things are going to fail occasionally. The best way you can prepare for that is by budgeting in some maintenance visits. We recommend budgeting for a maintenance visit every 2 to 3 months. Hopefully, you won't have to use them at all, but chances are the glass will get dirty, something will go wrong, you need to go out there and visit it, and at least you've budgeted for it and it's not coming out of your bottom line. So to avoid this mistake, make sure you budget for a maintenance visit at least every 2 to 3 months of your project.
Now, mistake number 6 is installing your unit in a place that is costly to access. Now, this isn't always avoidable, but whenever possible, you want to put your unit in a place where it's easy to access because you will want to perform maintenance on it throughout the project, and you want to make sure that every time you're not going to have to pay for a scissor lift and all those different difficulties that can come with costly access.
Mistake number 7 is setting your camera on auto. Now with long-term time-lapse, you do want to put it in aperture priority because your lighting is going to be changing hour to hour, day to day, week to week, different seasons across the year. So you want it in aperture priority, but everything else you want to lock down to manual. For example, you want to lock down your color balance to one of the manual settings. It doesn't really matter which one, as long as it's locked down manually so that it's consistent throughout the project. You want to lock down your ISO to one setting. Otherwise, in low light situations, the ISO is going to ramp and you'll probably end up with grainy pictures rather than opening the shutter up for longer exposure. And then, most importantly of all, you want to lock down your lens to manual focus. Otherwise, you're going to get some focus shifting, or even worse, because the intervalometer is going to try and focus the camera first, you might actually miss the photo if the intervalometer doesn't hold down the trigger long enough. So other than aperture priority, you want to lock down as much as possible into a manual setting. It'll make it a lot easier for your post-production later on.
Mistake number 8, not using a connected system. There are a lot of benefits to the status reporting of a connected system. You want to make sure that your camera is constantly taking the photos look good, there's nothing that's gone wrong with the system. You want a connected system to ensure that. Additionally, the remote configuration, you want to be able to change the settings so that if there is something important happening on the project that's very quickly happening, you can change the shooting regime to take a photo, say, every 5 minutes instead of every 20. And with a connected system, you have an online gallery, which is incredibly valuable to the end client, which you can charge an additional service fee for.
Mistake number 9, failing to change shooting regime for significant events that happen on site. So Ross was just talking about the connectivity and the importance of that, and one of the things that you get with that is the ability to change your settings. Now, construction sites, things happen at varying speeds at different times. Sometimes things are really slow, but then sometimes, such as during a concrete pour, things are really fast. You might have 10 times the number of people on site, 10 times the action, all happening in one day, much faster than normal. So when events like this come up, you want to be able to jump online, remotely change your intervalometer settings to be shooting a lot faster so that you capture that action, and that'll make for a much more interesting video at the end of the project. To avoid this mistake, make sure you ask your client to have a contact in their company who can tell you when these events are about to happen, and then change your settings so you can shoot much faster while they're going on.
Mistake number 10 is charging only for the final video. With long-term time-lapse, you're uploading photos every single day, and so you should be charging a recurring monthly fee to the end client accordingly. Additionally, you don't want to charge only 50% up front like a normal creative project and 50% at the end, because long-term time-lapse projects, construction projects, take a long time, and so you want to be locking in a monthly service to provide that stability for your business. To avoid this mistake, make sure that you're locking in a monthly service with the end client and not just for the final time-lapse video.
So that's 10 mistakes photographers make when shooting long-term time-lapse and how to avoid them. We've got a raft of other videos that do a deep dive into production, pre-production, post-production of long-term time-lapse, so make sure you check those out.